small little ideas of who he might have been, but it's a great mystery. As a matter of fact, when we found my real great-grandmother, all the other siblings, my grandmother had quite a big family. I think 5 or 6 kids. Back then, I think it was a decent-sized family for a non-dati, non-religious family, Jewish family. But her siblings refused to tell that we're still living. There was 3 still living when we inquired. They refused to tell us who the real father is. One actually said, "I would rather kill myself than tell you who the real father was." It's like this mystery she took to the grave. Anyways, so my mom was separated from her brother, both put in an orphanage in Haifa, because my real grandmother, Ruth Epstein, didn't think she can raise her 2 small children by herself. And remember, it was 1948. This was 1948 when this happened. Israel had just become a modern state. Her brother had just died in the war. Maybe a month or 2 before this, she put them in the orphanage. So it was just a terrible life, and she just thought, somebody could probably give my 2 babies a better life. At least this is what I'm assuming. This is what she was thinking. I'm hoping. And Micha was adopted into a kibbutz family. My uncle, my mom's brother, at 3 years old, and he moved to kibbutz En HaMifratz. It's near the ancient city of Akko, the northern coast of Israel. He's still there to this day. Grew up in a kibbutz. And how many know what a kibbutz is yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so a few of us know what a kibbutz is. Kibbutz comes from the word putza, right? Like a group or community. It was the early way of survival, and I'll just say that, I'll just keep it simple. Benny could probably explain it better later. It was the early way for the Jewish people to survive, so they basically built small little villages, and they survived there. Built a little fence around or a wall around, and they survived within, had their own agriculture, had their own whatever they did to trade and earn money and feed their village, and to ward off people that were trying to kill them.
It has a description in our room.
Okay, it did. Okay, great. So you're staying at a kibbutz right now. This is a hotel built by Kibbutz Ma'agan. So you're in the hotel part, but just over to the right is the actual kibbutz itself, which we go to sometimes to go swimming. We drive around into the kibbutz. I have a little green boat. I launch in there. If you guys notice the island behind on the lake, so that's my island. I think I told you that before. So I go out to the island to bring out my fishing pole, and go fishing and light a campfire once in a while, and fish from there. But anyways, he ended up in a kibbutz. My mother ended the other extreme of Israel. She ended up in an Orthodox couple's home that adopted her. So she grew up religious in Israel, and then so she was adopted as an infant. They didn't tell her she was adopted. She didn't know she was adopted. So she just grew up thinking this is her mom and her dad. And at 6 years old, her father, who owned a small marble cutting factory in the Krayot in Haifa, his name was Peretz Miller. He died when she was 6 years old, and now she's with another single mother. She doesn't know this is the second single mother. This single mother decides she can't raise my mom by herself, just the one daughter. She just fled the Holocaust. Almost all of her family died. My adopted grandmother, my other grandmother, fled with her siblings, so she made it out with much of her family. But my adopted grandmother lost just about everybody, and she only made it alive because her mother, again, this is my adopted grandmother, her mother had a dream twice to send my grandmother away. And in the dream, it was a dead uncle telling her mother, "Send Batia away, send Batia away." So that after the second dream, everybody knew Nazis were there, that they were doing terrible things. Nobody knew about the final solution. Nobody thought that if they got on those trains, they were never coming back. I mean, maybe some people did. So there was always some glimmer of hope. So when she had that dream a second time, she told my grandmother, my adopted grandmother, get out. So she made it out just before the soldiers came and took the family away, and she meandered her way through Europe and ended up in Israel. So both my grandmothers, my adopted and my real grandmother, fled Nazi Europe. But my adopted grandmother finds herself back in Israel. She's a returnee. She's an immigrant. She made it. She fulfilled the promise. Her husband dies on her. Now she's left with this child by herself. And the husband is the one who really begged her to adopt my mom. And my mother remembers very clearly her Abba Peretz, and he was just a loving father. So she just got 6 years old, dropped off back at the orphanage, and left for 5 years in the orphanage in Haifa, and it's called Mossad Ahava. It's still there. It's more like a foster home.